State Board of Ed votes to pass emergency rules following the signing of House Bill 1775 that bans critical race theory in education. I did not watch all of the vote. It passed 5-1. The lone black member of the State Board of Ed voting against it. Got a clip in the story about it. But I did recognize some of the speakers that spoke in favor of it. Basically, it was just your typical right-wing, mostly women, it seemed like, but your right-wing people who came to the state board and begged them to stop teaching our kids to hate, or whatever they think this is. For those that don't remember, House Bill 1775 was the law passed last session that banned the teaching of divisive topics. It also banned mandatory trainings on diversity. We've covered it a lot. I mean, I don't know how much more setup there needs to be. There was also a pretty powerful Washington Post opinion piece that I cannot pull up because I am now behind the paywall on it, or in front of the paywall on it. But basically just pointing out that there was two people that spoke at the State Board of Ed in opposition to adopting these rules. And they were both black, and that was it. And, I got an email from an activist type person wanting folks to show up at State Board of Ed. It was all very last minute. They didn't announce the meeting until like Friday afternoon, I don't think. So, I mean, and you had to go and speak at the board meeting. It's in a tiny ass room at the State Department of Education. It's not a fun deal. You can't even fit in the room most of the time if it's a busy meeting. It's also just cramped and hot and uncomfortable, and we knew they were going to pass it anyway. I mean, I think those of us that follow this knew that this was coming. But that's kind of the setup of the story. I don't know, Ron, I'll let you take the first shot at the analysis part of it. I got lots of thoughts and opinions, but figure...
A couple of things. Number one, I encourage anyone who supports that bill and the implementation of it to explain what they believe critical race theory is. Like, that's the first thing.
Step one.
Yeah, before I can hate anything, I should know what it is. And from hearing them speak and from the drafting of the bill, from the politicians, what their thoughts of critical race theory is, it's clear that they don't fucking know what it is. I am not an expert in it, but I happen to know what it is. As critical race theory began in law schools when I took critical race theory classes in law school. It's simply an analysis of laws and understanding the context of them is insufficient for addressing racism in America. Because it came out of the basic process that we live with today that's important and critical for us to understand. We have a civil rights bill. We have a voting rights act. We have a Fair Housing Act. Yet housing discrimination is rampant. Voting disparities exist and are getting worse, right? And civil rights are being trampled on, and there's still massive disparities amongst Black folks and other races and the majority white population in this country. So the law is insufficient, and it all is a critical analysis as to why these disparities exist and why the law is insufficient in addressing them and how the law contributed to them, right? That's what it is. There is no white people atonement element of critical race theory. There is no Black people being placed in some advantageous spots in critical race theory. Those things don't exist. It's a theory, a way of considering a perspective, an intellectual analysis and framework. That's what theories are. So there's that first and foremost. And if you listen to the Into America podcast, Kimberly Crenshaw, who actually is one of the people who is a founding leader of thought, I guess Derek Bell will be the founder. She is probably the foremost thought leader of critical race theory in contemporary America. She does a great job of explaining what it is, but most importantly, she does a great job of explaining why it's critical for people for the opposition to it to exist, right? What they're doing. And essentially what they're doing is, if you view critical race theory, it's really analysis of power, and power is allocated on the basis of race in this country. And those who have power want to keep it. And this is a way of demonizing critical race theory. So there isn't a critical analysis of power dynamics in this country. And she lays that out far better than I ever will be able to. But that's what it is, right? That's this demonization, this mischaracterization, this bastardization of critical race theory. It's just to scare people into thinking like it's this white hate field of study, and it's nowhere near that, right? But I wonder what it's going to look like next year for a couple of reasons. The first reason is this is just the right's latest fear mongering tactic. And the minute they think they can get more value out of fear mongering and grievous politics of some issue, which they will probably be able to in like a couple weeks, this won't be on Fox News again. It'll be on like once or twice as it was before for the entire fucking year.
Right.
But so there's that. But the chilling effect it will have is my primary concern. Because how can you really teach the context around the Tulsa race massacre without having some sort of analysis of the essential racial component? And the way it's written is so fucking horrible that I, as a lawyer, like I guess if you gave me 5 concrete examples of teachers teaching some element of race or gender, I probably could not, or like to the lawyer who could identify with this is I don't say illegal, but this is not allowed according to that, and this is allowed because it's so poorly written.
Yeah.
But what we can say is it will chill critical analysis of, say, the Tulsa race massacre, why it occurred, and why there are a variety of disparities between indigenous folks and black folks and white folks in this state. And that's the long-term effects. Let's be frank, the long-term effects are there is less intellectual rigor in our schools for our students of considering power disparities. And they already aren't getting taught a variety of fucking theories. And this puts them farther behind the 8 ball. If you're not able to critically analyze such things, you're farther behind the 8 ball when you go write a book report or you go write some report in your first year English class and then spot some topic that even touches on this. If you don't have those skills, in addition to just all of the poor writing skills you don't develop because we're underfunding our fucking schools anyway.
Right.
So I mean, there's a big question if you know how to write an essay, and I don't say that like being funny, but that's the
I can
long-term
vouch.
effects. Yeah.
Well, no, and I mean, to go to it, I mean, that's exactly what it is. And we'll talk about it a little later, too, with one of the other bills about recording police officers, but it's already having a chilling effect. Like, I mean, I know a college professor already that has pulled down previous work because it touched on some of these things that now may or may not be illegal based on the wording of this law. So, and of course, I've got the quotes pulled up, and when you read it, I mean, that's exactly what it is. When we speak about the Holocaust, nobody is pointing at the German kid telling him he's a bad person because of Hitler's actions. So why is that an excuse for slavery? And why is my life political? I'm a human being just like everyone in the room. I mean, it is like quintessential white grievance politics here, as if like, I don't know, 400 years of history didn't happen, or that like other people's lives aren't overtly political based on the dominant culture, historical, all these things.
Someone in the room should have responded to and please stop making Hitler analogies, man. But someone should have responded with this. Well, that's not what critical race theory is. No one points at Germans, but you know what critical race theory does. You know what the Germans do, have an advantage of. The Germans acknowledge and analyze what led to the fascism that was Adolf Hitler, and it helps them avoid such. And they don't glorify Nazism as we glorify the Confederate States of America, right? That's the first thing.
Yeah, and people aren't having their weddings at concentration camps, like they do at plantations.
Exactly.
They realize that's not true.
Kind of a bad idea. You don't want to go to a high school named after a Nazi general. It's kind of a bad idea. But what they understand is Hitler demonizing the Jews and demonizing the socialists and demonizing really all non-Germans as an excuse to, after World War I, as to why Germans were in the bind they were in. That's not the actual reason, but utilizing that fuel to create this fire that was fascism, this fire that was the Holocaust. You have to understand the context of that. And the Germans understand that. And that's how they hopefully we can avoid another situation like the Holocaust, right? And if you can critically analyze what happened, we can become a better society as the Germans have. Like you can't. And Adam Sawyer, Cruelty is the Cruelty is the Point's a great book. I just finished, but Adam Sawyer makes the point. It's like if you don't know about convict leasing and in-depth analysis of redlining, you can walk outside and say, "Well, black people are poor because they're lazy." Right, like that's a reasonable thing to think. But if you have a critical race theory, a critical analysis of convict leasing, of the Tulsa Race Massacre and why it happened, right? Wasn't just like one day they were angry. It was these black folks across the tracks were able to make something on the oil and gas money that other people making. And because they were able to survive thrive socioeconomically, white people didn't like that. And so let's go burn their shit down. And if you understand that, you understand so many other racial massacres that have occurred in this country, right? You understand how to, at least once you have knowledge, then you can have action. And the point of this is to avoid action, so avoiding knowledge.
Yeah, and these rules are just, they're just so ludicrous. They're just rewriting what was in the law, which already, it's just thought policing. And for the party that claims to be about free speech, it's like you can hear somebody say something that you don't like and just move on. Like, it's just words. Like, a teacher can give an opinion that isn't good or that you don't agree with, and you just move on with your life. It's just but now we have like policies and laws and rules to govern exactly how this engagement goes down. And it is not hard to think in a state dominated by a certain ideology like ours, who that is going to get enforced against. And you could tell again from the speakers, looking at their quotes, looking at what they said. It's a damn mess is what it's going to be.